right. Good morning. Let's get started. How are you today? All right. We get the early tents where it's not blistering hot yet. So there's a lot of seats over here if you want to stay clear of each other. You know, you get too much mass together, it gets a little warm. So as you need to spread out, there's more seats on this side. Filter on in. I know it's early. You had to stand over there, listen to that Schaefer guy talk about butchering chickens. Good stuff. Well, anyway, thanks for coming back for day two. Thanks for giving me a crack at you for day two. I'm Daniel Salatin from Polyface Farm of Virginia. Those of you who maybe not heard us before, we run a multi-species grass-based operation. I've got side hustle here. The meat, protein, beef, pork, poultry, rabbit, sheep, etc. And so I started the story goes, I started when I was, right when I could walk, basically working on the farm. And so I've had a lot of experience loading and moving animals. Certainly the expert of animal husbandry and animal science, of course, is Dr. Temple, who is here. And I'm certainly not going to compare or compete with her expertise of cattle and or animal management. So if you came here to hear about cattle movement specifically, I'm going to let her handle a lot of that. What I'm going to talk about today is a little bit the specifics of just, okay, you got a chicken, now we got to literally pick it up. The alternate title for this is, moving animals, how to pick up chicks. So some conferences aren't quite ready to go with that title yet. So anyway, it's a little edgy. But the idea of, okay, how do we actually handle this animal? How do we get it from point A to point B? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on cows because that's kind of a upper level homestead thing. If you have one or two, that's how to handle one or two, but you don't have a big mob yet. But I know a lot of people so how many people have chickens, right? Okay, good. How many people have pigs? Keep your hand up. It says your first year with pigs. Okay, and yet to load pigs. Okay, good. All right, we're going to spend a lot of time on pigs because if you have pigs, those of you who have loaded pigs probably have a pig loading story, right? You can raise your hand. Okay. Gotcha. So a pig, is one of the most smart, intelligent creatures on the planet, but can be the most obstinate and complicated and frustrating animal if you don't know how to handle it right. So we're going to talk a little bit about conceptual things first, like I did yesterday, talk conceptually first, and then dig deep into the actual nitty-gritty of moving animals. Because what I don't want you to do, again, like we talked about yesterday, is get frustrated, burned out, and have bad loading experiences, right? Because if you've had pigs before, specifically pigs, I love pigs, but I'm going to pick on them a lot because they can get loading badly quick. And I've always said my son got to play football one year, and I said, well, they were doing tackling practice. I was like, well, I can bring a hog out and just get, if you can tackle that, you'll be fine, And they were on a homeschool league, so they were, little nerds really going up against big fellas. And the line outweighed them about 50 pounds apiece every time. I was like, you're going to have to get awful low to get the angle on those guys. So I think I might need to bring some pigs out. If you can get the angle on a pig that's about this tall, you might get the angle on those big guys. Anyway, I digress. A couple thoughts. I've got some demo stuff. We're going to have fun. We're going to get up here and we're going to play around. We're going to do some hands-on stuff. And this is not a big enough tent. I think I can even go mic-less for some of the demo stuff. But so conceptually, a few things to get started. We have these stories. We have these loading stories. Again, some neighbors of ours. I've worked with my granddad, who's passed on. Worked with who did conventional style farming. Not my grandfather. That's my dad's dad, but my granddaddy, who was my mom's dad. Grew up working with him, castrating calves, giving vaccines. I was the kid on the fence, loading the needles and passing them over the fence, that kind of stuff. And worked with neighbors, same thing. And you have all those stories of the wife on the outside of the fence taking the notes, and the husband on the inside of the fence yelling out the information, I need a button. A what? A button. The button for the little tagger, right? You need a needle? No, a button. And then, is that a heifer? A bull. Heifer. No, bull. Heifer, right? Yes, heifer. It's just all this yelling back and forth, and you have this banter that's going on. That's happening. And at the same time, I've had a lot of experience. We don't want to, don't think that we've got it all figured out, right? We've had situations where we have a Boy Scout camp, Boy Scouts of America camp, about a mile as the crow flies, if you will, from our farm line. And a couple of years ago, I got a call. They have a big lake, of course, for the camp. And I got a call from the scoutmaster and said, yeah, we got about 30 hogs that just rolled into the camp lake. I was like, oh, shoot. So they had gotten out and worked their way down this valley and had popped out at this lake. So, yeah, things don't always work out. I don't want you to be yelling back and forth. I don't want you to get a divorce. They say if you can build a house or work cattle together and stay married, you're probably okay. I don't want you to be like, Wimpy in the old Popeye movies where he's like, chasing the duck around with the little grinder thing and you're just trying to pick up this animal. There's a lot of things that are going on. We don't want that to happen. So we'll move on. Let's see. So first off, communication is key. So we don't want to be yelling in the moment. And again, these are the conceptual things. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty things, I promise. First of all, the conceptual things. We want to start with the end in mind, Stephen Covey's idea, but it's really important when you're moving animals. Start with the end in mind and make sure the entire team understands. That entire team might just be your spouse. It might just be a child, but make sure your whole team understands. And what I mean by that is if you're moving, let's just say cows for a minute. If we're going to move cows from pasture A to the corral down by the barn, we need people to understand that we need the cows to end, in the barn, right? And so we have our plan A, our route preferred down the alley. They're going to come out of the paddock. They're going to go down the alley. They're going to turn right into the barn. Everything's going to be fine. We also want to have a plan B, all right? And part of that plan B is helping them understand where these animals need to end up. So success, if for some reason, let's just say the one heifer decides to get a little high-headed and jump over the fence, as long as the cows are working toward the corral, toward the barn. Thanks, bud. This is my son, Andrew, by the way. And so as long as they're working toward the corral, we're on our way to success. It doesn't have to go down the lane perfectly. That's our preferred. But if it doesn't, as long as they're going in the direction of the barn, we're okay. Right? So working through those plan Bs and starting with that end in mind is really important. So again, if you're trying to bring up pigs, okay, pigs have to work up this way. Good. As long as the pigs, the idea was to bring them up the left side of the fence, have them turn right into our little pen and go on the trailer. Well, okay, they all of a sudden decide to go up the right side of the fence. That's okay as long as we have a plan to know where they need to end up. All right? So start that communication and keep that in mind. Also, along with that, is to set with that communication piece is to set expectations of how this kind of livestock is to be handled on your farm. So we deal with this a lot, especially when we take in our stewards and our staff and our team members. They've maybe worked animals before, and so their expectations of how to work an animal is very different from maybe my expectations of how to work an animal. So on your farm, maybe waving your arms is okay. On another farm, it's not. We'll talk about chicken catching. Maybe the body catch is okay is only the thing that you can use at one farm. Some farms, the leg catching is okay. We'll talk about what that means if you're not clear here in a bit. But you see what I'm saying? You need to communicate what a successful handling operation looks like, okay? So don't assume that just because someone says, oh, I know how to work cows, that they will know how to work cows your way, or they know how to pick up chickens your way. Okay? So make sure you have that communication clear beforehand so that you're all on the same page, right? So this is all, in a perfect world, I talked about utopia yesterday. There's real world and there's utopian world. In the utopia world, this happens before anything gets started. This is over breakfast. This is over the cup of coffee. This is standing around the ATV before you go out. Whatever it is, it's before things hit the fan, right? And that's when these communications happen, so that when something does go wrong, you have these contingencies, these backup plans, these plan Bs, and the expectations for clear communication. All right? Does that all make sense? We don't need to be communicating in the moment. Number two in the big setup is key. So communication is key. Setup is key. We want to get you past... we want you to have the right supplies at hand, the right situation ready to go, and we want to get you past the hope so stage, right? Loading success starts by getting past hope so. There's lots of loading situations that I've been a part of where it's mostly baling twine and prayer, right? We want to get you past baling wire and prayer, right? We want to get past hope so. We want to get to know so. And that way you have success, right? We don't want you to be in a situation where you're literally crossing your fingers, hoping this works, hoping the animal is hungry enough to follow you. Okay, all of those things, we don't want you to get there. We don't want to say, if you walk out the door and there's any little bit of voice in the back of your head that says, I hope so, let's back up and rethink this a little bit and see if there's something else we can do, okay? Let's get past hope so. I've loaded animals in lots and lots and lots of baling wire and prayer situations, and it's not fun. It can be done, but here's what happens. If you get in that situation, it creates a very high level of mastery to make that success. So, some of you have heard of like Bud Williams or Bert Smith. Anybody? Look those up. They're amazing cattle handling people, even Temple, of course. When they go to handle animals, they can do magical things. If you look up, again, Bud Williams or Bert Smith, they both were writers and stuff for Stockman Grass. Bud Williams has passed on, Bud Williams has passed away now. But cattle handling geniuses in the big stockyards and stuff, and I guess they, of course, follow Temple's work as well, but mostly with the animal working in corral situations. They could bring in animals from the pasture that were wild, and they would spend a couple of days with them, and they could get them in, and it worked. But their level of mastery was like way, 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 way up here, okay? And if this is your first loading experience, you're way, way, way down here, and that's fine. But what it does is if you're going, there's plenty of times when I'm working with a team, and we've loaded in a little bit of a sketchy situation. We'll get done, and I'll look at them and smile and say, children, do not attempt this at home. This is not the way it's supposed to be done. This is a closed course, professionals only, like the little tagline at the bottom of a car commercial, right? Closed course, professionals only. You can get away with something when you get to a certain level of mastery. I don't want you to start there because that leads to disaster and frustration, okay? So just because you may have seen something done online or seen something happen with a professional, I don't want you to start there because we want to get you past hope so. We want to get you to know so. So setup is the next key. Setup is key. And setup is everything. For example, you want everything you need together. So if we're going to go catch meat birds, all right? Now we're going to go catch like 700, 800 meat birds for processing. So I understand the scale is maybe a little different, but we have everything together on this, we have a chicken truck now, but it's a small flatbed truck. And it has everything that we need for catching the chickens together. You don't want to be roaming around your homestead collecting this piece from over here, that piece from over there, this piece from the garage. You know what I'm saying? Okay? So we have our, on the chicken truck, for example, and this might just be a little pallet next to your shed when you start off, and that's fine. But we have the chicken crates, right? So that's a chicken crate. We got a stack of those on the chicken truck. We have what we call our sweet boards, which I did not bring with me, but they look a little like this, but they're made out of plyboard, and they're low enough to fit inside the chicken shelters, okay? So we've got our 2-foot chicken shelters. They're cut about 18 inches tall, so the little pieces of plyboard are about 18 inches tall. Our chicken shelters are 10 feet wide, so we have an 8-foot piece and a 3-foot piece. So what we do is if this area here's my chicken shelter, I've taken the one lid off the front, and I take that chicken board and I sweep it in the back. I work it as a paddle and bring all the chickens to the front, lock it up in the halfway point. I put the little 3-foot one in, and I put a little stick behind it to keep it from falling over. Now all the chickens are in the front. I'm too old and fat to be climbing in the back of these chicken shelters, and you don't want to do it either. So we want them all out front. Then I take off the lid, and it's all open, and I can catch up anything I want to catch. And they're all within a 6-foot by 10-foot area, okay? They're not running all over a big shelter. They're right there. Now, a little bit more on that later, but the point is the sort boards, the chicken crates, straps to strap down the chicken crates are all on this chicken truck. So literally, anytime we need to go catch chickens, you just go out, hop in the chicken truck, drive. You're good. No thinking because you've got a lot of other stuff on your mind. Inevitably, you get out there without this preparation, and you're going, I forgot a sort board, or I forgot my straps. Right? Because it's not all together. If it's all in a little pile, it will all flow together and you're in good shape, okay? So I encourage you to keep all the stuff as much as possible together. So like our pig boards, we'll talk a little bit more about a pig mover in a minute, but they're right on the pig mover. We've got chains on the pig mover. Everything is right there. So we back up, we hook up to the pig mover, and we're off to load pigs, and everything is already on it, okay? So try to keep things together to move things. The next thing to think about is the tendencies of each piece of livestock, okay? So if you're going to work sheep, that's going to be very different than working cows. If you're going to go catch rabbits, that's very different than catching chickens. All right, now I guess I understand that you're like, duh, Daniel, I thought you were here to teach us something. Come on. However, it's important to learn how these animals work in the wild and what their tendencies are, okay? So when you think about it, go down my list here, I'll get sidetracked. So like obviously cows work in mobs, right? They like big groups, they like to work together, they don't like to be separated, and they like to be herded from typically the rear or the sides, all right? Again, there's lots of good books and stuff out there. I'm not going to get too deep into it. But the idea of them staying together, working as a mob. Here's example of this. How do they like to move? So cows don't like to move downhill, right? They're designed to go uphill. Why? Because when predators chase herbivores, they need to be able to quickly ascend to get up from a visual perspective to get away from danger. So, I mean, their hooves in general are shaped forward. Sheep, same way. They're shaped forward so they can bite into the ground, climb a hill, and get away from danger. So, if you're trying to load cows, making them go downhill is something they don't want to do. If your corral entrance if you buy a property and the farmer who had it before, their corral area or their laneway leading to the barn where you're going to load animals is kind of a fairly steep, steady downhill, that's always going to be a pain. It's always going to be a hassle to get the cows to come off. So anytime I go to move cows, I try to make sure that the paddock that they're in the day of the move is something where they're going to come uphill or flat to where I'm going, right? And so that sets you up for success because I'm thinking like the animal that I'm trying to move. Does that make sense? Okay, I really want this to work for you. I really want this to be successful. Same with so again, you think about pigs, of course. They want to be led by their nose. They want to smell things. They want to go forward. They also don't like to go downhill. And they don't like to climb uphill much. They don't like steps. They like things to be very flat, very organized because they have a very low center of gravity. Their legs are very, very short. Chickens kind of go their own thing. Think about chickens in the wild. Chickens, why are they so hard to move as a group? Well, because they're lone rangers. They really are, you know? Chicken Run kind of got that right, you know? Lone Free Ranger. He's out there running his thing. And the reason they like to go by themselves is because in the wild, most of the time, they are one hen has their little clutch. This is, again, think about in the jungle or a very diffused light setting in very dense, heavy overbrush. They're going to have their little clutch. They're going to be one little hen, and they're going to be feeding that little clutch of chicks on their own. They don't group up a lot. They stay by themselves. And so when you're trying to move these chickens from one place to another and one breaks off and takes off, you're like, why did they do that? That's kind of what they do already, right? So herding chickens is very difficult because you're asking the chicken to do something that they don't normally do. Let's see what other animals. Ducks, for example. Ducks love to herd together. Big flocks of ducks. You know, people hunt. We love to hunt ducks. Those who get to hunt, they come together in big groups. They mob up. They flock together and head north or south or whichever way they happen to be going the time of year. So moving a group of ducks in a big flock is not a problem. They stay together great. They actually are some of the most enjoyable things to herd. You can literally control them with a couple of long switches with some leaves on the ends. You hold those out, extend your length about 10 feet this way, 10 feet this way. You can herd a flock of ducks from here to the next county. They're great. Just one step this way, and all their heads are like, and then they're like, all the heads are like this, back this way. I mean, they are crazy responsive to your movement. So they're really fun. They're really fun to practice on herding, but they stay together. Okay. that's enough of examples, but you see what I'm trying to say. Think like the animal that you're herding, and think about what they do in nature, and realize what you're asking them to do might be completely different from the way they were created and the way they've lived for thousands of years. And you, on your first loading experience, in your first time as a homesteader, are not going to undo all of those thousands of years of experience in breeding and genetic selection and creational survival tactics, okay? So I don't want you to go against those. Let's see. So we talked about cows don't like to go downhill. They like routine. So how do they like to move? Pigs, we'll start with the cows. Cows don't like to go downhill. We talked about that. They like to see things that are routine. Temple talks about that by leaps and bounds. Don't leave your shirt hanging over the fence. Keep it very normal. If you are moving cows, if you typically move cows at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you need to load up animals to go to their, as we say, their final ride, don't do it at 8 o'clock in the morning. Do it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, like everything else. When you go to move them out of the paddock, and they're, again, I don't need to draw it, but if they're working across a field this way, paddock, 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 and your laneway is down here and your barn's over this way, they know they're just going to come here, and instead of this time coming out the gate to go toward the next paddock, they're just going to come in the laneway and kind of go same direction. That's easy. They'll do that no problem. Same time, same direction, same sequence, all of those things. If they are moving across the field this way and the barn's back over here, it's a lot harder to get them to come out the gate and go to the other direction, right? And so it can be done, and it's fine, but the more you can do to set up for success, to keep them going in the same direction, the same routine, et cetera, even skipping a paddock, changing a paddock size, moving them a day early, all these things to make sure it's easy, so when you actually have to get them in and get them on the trailer, it happens. Do it the night, move them at 4 o'clock the night before, so they're all pinned up. If your hauler says, hey, I got to be there at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning to haul them out of here, do it at 4 o'clock Friday night. The cows stay in the corral over the night, and then they go out the next morning. Don't try to get them in there at 6 in the morning, get out there hustling, oh, I'll have help that day. No. If they're used to leading, they're following you, just you. Go out with you, just you. Keep that routine the same. Cattle specifically are routine, routine, routine. So keep that the same. Keep them loading in the same direction. And so for us, we like to try to, here's another thing. Make the corral a normal stopping off point for your cattle herd that doesn't equal stress. Let them associate the corral with a paddock shift. So any chance we can, if we're moving from this side of the farm to the other side of the farm, we've strategically put some corrals and working pens kind of in the middle. And so any chance we can, we just run the cows into the corral, literally close the gate on this side, walk around to the other side, open the gate as they go to the next paddocks, or even a laneway or whatever they're doing. But so that if every time the cows go to a corral, they get messed with, it's stressful, it's long, it's hot, it's boring, it's annoying, they don't want to go back, okay? And so it's really important to keep that on a low stress area. So we find, even for us, we have these rented farms around, and we have to trailer the animals from one farm to another. People are like, well, man, that's super stressful, right? No, it's not really, because the cows, the first time they learn, we handle them with pretty much the low stress techniques of Temple and these other folks. They load great. It's not a problem. They go to the next place, and they come off. And so they realize, hey, if I just go on the trailer, they're taking me to another paddock. This is awesome. It's just part of a paddock shift. It's just a long, bumpy, little bit hotter, stickier trailer ride. Not a problem, but I get good grass on the other end. And so literally when we load them up for that final ride again, it's not stressful. They're, okay, we're just going to another paddock. No problem. And the sad part is they don't come back, but that's okay. For them, it's a non-stress situation because we've set up a routine. Okay, we've set up a routine moving them animals. So again, if you have a small homestead, I'm not suggesting you put your beef on a trailer, drive it around the block, come back and unload it. I'm not saying that. However, I am saying how in-depth you can get to creating routine to create stress-free animal handling. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's really important to follow that along. Chickens, they like to be covered Again, we talked about the diffused light of the tropics, right? That's where they come from. They come from tropical areas, very, very dense forest cover, very, very diffused light, that kind of thing. So anytime you ask a chicken to go into an open area where there is no coverage, they get a little stressed. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the meat chicken example. The meat chicken example, when we do the loading, most of you are familiar with it, but just to sketch it out here real quick. Some of you are familiar with the pastured shelters. Maybe not. This whole back area is covered with some type of cover, and we have the front divided, and it's got a cover on this front side on the right, and then it's got chicken wire on this side. All right, I'm not going to belabor this, but the point is this. We do not take off this chicken wire door when we're bringing the chickens out front. You say, well, it's just chicken wire. That's nothing major. Believe me, to an animal whose survival is about noticing what's above them, they're pretty aware of those things. So we take off this first solid door over here, take our sweep board, goes over here, sweeps around, comes forward to this line here. This door is gone, but we're not asking them to come here. We're asking them to come here. That is now specifically the same, right? We tell our team, do not stack the crates right there. That's different. That's out of routine. That's something that's not there normally. If you want to stack the crates, you can stack the crates over here. That's fine, but not over here where we're asking the birds to go. Once we bring the birds around front, we put in our other sort board, we're locking everything down, then we will take this door off. And the birds come out literally 50 to 80% better when they come forward like that, okay? And you're like, well, it's just chicken wire. Believe me, it's different. So that's very, very important. I always try to stop there about this point. Any questions on what I've blasted through? I meant to say that earlier. If you have questions or I use a term that you don't understand, please stop me and ask, because I don't want this to go over anybody's head. Any questions on what I've covered so far? Yes, go ahead. Sure. Yeah, okay. How long is that sweep? The first sweep board that makes the first pass is the full 8 feet. Yep, and we've cut out little holes in it like this for handholds, and we've taken the time to rind them off. We use really small, like 3/8 plywood, not particle board, but plywood, so it's as light as possible. We keep them dry so they don't get wet and heavy, and yeah, it just comes around. It's really light, and it sweeps around really good. And then the other 3-foot piece, so you've got a foot overlap, right? Drops in, and then we just take a stick or something and drop in behind it so it doesn't fall over. Yeah, that's a good question. But that first 8-footer just sweeps on around there and locks in place. Good. Yes? So is it just the board? It's just the board at first, but again, I should have brought something to demonstrate this. But anyway, so if I'm bringing it around, so I'm sliding it in the back of the pen, I'm going to sweep it around like this, and now it's up against, if you know the shelters, it's got a brace here typically. It's up against the brace. And then I'm taking one of the plug sticks from the back that's always there, and I'm just sticking it behind it and locking it against the roof so it doesn't fall backwards, right? And then when I'm done catching, I just pull that prop stick, kick it backwards, slide it forward, and it's out, and we're off to the next shelter. Yeah, good clarification. Awesome. Because again, people see those, they think, oh man, you got to climb in there, it's a pain, it's nasty. No. I do not walk around and poop. No. We move the shelter first. Again, routine for the chickens. We're moving the shelter like we normally do. We catch in the mornings typically. So we're going to move the shelter. We're going to catch 6 shelters today. We're going to move the shelter, move all 6. That gives the first one, 10 minutes to walk around, clean off their feathers, clean off their feet. They've already been fasting, so they're not pooping a lot. And then we take everything off, sweep it forward, start catching them, and their feet are clean, their feathers are clean. We take some of our birds to a USDA plant for shipping purposes, and we get total comments all the time of how clean our birds are and how clean the scalder water stays, all that kind of thing, because our birds are so clean going in. That's really important. Again, if you're talking about keeping a bird sanitary, keeping disease, sickness and things coming in on that manure. If you start with 1 million particles, that's one level of risk. If you come in with 1,000 particles, that's another level of risk, right? So you want to keep that level down if possible when they come into the processing facility. And it starts in the pasture by the moving. And again, if we do it in the morning, they're wanting to come forward nice and easy. People I said would, they laugh at how I'm not squeamish about manure. I just don't like it on me, right? They're like, you're a farmer, don't you have it? I'm like, no, just because I need manure, like manure, and think manure is important doesn't mean I want to carry it around with me all day. I found that levitation was possible. We were loading pigs one day, and we were loading pigs out of the winter, and they have their toilet, right? And the only place we could load them was right through the toilet. And where we were loading them, a pig turned around. I had my pig board, and the pig came and uprooted me, and I went flying. And I think if you asked me to do this ever again, I would never be. I reached out, I grabbed a pipe gate, and I believe I grabbed that pipe gate and stood just perfectly flat, like straight out, like a gymnast. I could never do that today, but I was like, I'm not falling in this toilet. No way, I'm not doing it. Okay, chickens, diffuse light, tropics, keep them coming. They move in small areas. They're looking for bugs, one hen at a time. We bring them forward, keeping them covered, using that as a structure. So chickens out, if you've got netting, you're using the electric net, and you've got a big group in a pasture. Okay, don't try to herd them away from shade. We always open the netting. We move the structure first. We do all the feed, all the water, everything, and let the birds move themselves over, and then we can close it up. Now, do I have to chase one random chicken? There are times when I do that. Don't hear me that I've never have. I do plenty. But, so on that stage, if we're moving those layers, I'm going to move them at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You say, well, why would you do that? Well, in the morning, they're laying their eggs. I don't want to disturb them and bother them. And in the summer, typically, it's really sunny, really hot, today and yesterday. And so what do they want? They want to go to shade. So as if I move their shade structure, they don't want to be left in the old paddock where there's no shade, no cover. They're like, heck no, I'm going over there where there's shade. So it becomes very simple, right? Again, I'm too old and fat to chase chickens and run around chasing them and keeping them picked up. And you don't have time, and I don't want you to do it. So move the chickens, feed, water, shelter, shade, and they're going to move themselves over there. Turkeys. They roam large areas and feed off of bugs and seeds, 2 to 3 hens at a time, big flocks of turkeys, 30, 40 birds in a flock, right? Sometimes, those of you who hunt turkeys and follow turkeys in the wild. So turkey herding is great. They can cover large distances of time, of space, very quickly, very easily. They flock together very nicely. If you can get some of the turkeys going the direction you want, most of the other turkeys follow. They follow very, very well. They herd way better than chickens. Again, why? Because of the way they're naturally designed to flock up. That's just the way they do it. Sheep like to be led. They like flocks, but they like to be led. Again, thousands of years of scripture about leading sheep is not there for chance. That's why they lead well. Again, when the scripture calls you sheep, it's not a compliment. And that's what it's for. They're there to be led and directed. I don't know if Andrew's here, but I have some of my prized videos of him when he was younger, when he had his sheep. Just being able to speak to them, call them, him and his dog could bring those sheep anywhere because they follow. Consistency. They're, again, looking at how they handle in the wild. They're very panicky. They flock. They get run away. They like reliability, consistency, and trust. So if you have sheep, make sure whoever does it, whether it's your 5-year-old or yourself, make sure it's the same person to move those sheep all the time. And get your call ready, get your whatever you do to talk to them, however that is, make that consistent so that they will follow. Again, my son Andrew could move sheep from one end of the farm to the other through the tallest, most beautiful grass on the farm, and they would keep following him because he would just call them and they would just come. He didn't have a chasing dog. He had a lead dog that would come with him, a guardian dog that would come along. And so he would move those, and he could do it because it was consistent. They trusted him, and he knew, again, the sheep know the shepherd's voice and would follow him. It was really probably pretty most the profound moments of my life watching him do that. It was cool. So they like to do it. Okay, that's a lot of the conceptual things. Pigs, okay, so pigs love dirt. All right, we're going to roll into some pigs, and we're going to get in some demos here. Pigs love dirt. Pigs love low things. Pigs love to follow their noses. I don't encourage you to follow their nose like leading them on with a bucket. I know some people do that. It's worked for some. That's fine. But I highly discourage that because now you're putting your faith on you're hoping that they're hungry. All right, now we're back to hope so, right? We don't like hope so. We want no so. So how do we load a pig that's past hope so and baiting? That is, we want to keep them on dirt and we want to keep them from stepping. All right, so again, back to my trusty whiteboard here. So we have a trailer at home. It's a pig mover, and it's specifically designed for this. Went all the way out to Iowa to get it, and it's got a trailer. It's a trailer that's hydraulically operated that has the wheels on the outside of the machine, and so it can drop all the way to the ground, right? And so that the wheels are not inside the deck, they're outside the deck, and it drops all the way to the ground, so the pig is literally walking on at ground level. You hit the hydraulics on the tractor, it raises up, and can go everywhere from 6 inches off the ground, 8 inches, 12 inches, up to like 36 inches off the ground, and you're off to the races to take them wherever. I saw a hand, go ahead. That trailer cost me, we got it literally more than 20 years ago. It probably only cost us at that time, I'm going to say maybe a couple thousand, and the trip out to Iowa to get it. Another option that works really well, they have some transfer trailers, like in the poultry industry, especially turkeys, where they're moving turkeys from one house to another sometimes, and those can work as well. But the concept of building a trailer with hydraulics on the outside to raise and lower is really critical. So that's what we do to move a lot of our pigs out in the open. Now, if you have 2 pigs, that's not what you want to do. Don't go buy a pig mover for that. So how do we do it if we go to places? The main thing is a slow, steady incline. Think about a disabled or handicapped ramp and think that level, right? So if you can navigate it, if you've got a handicap accessible entrance to a grocery store, to an elevated trailer, or to an elevated building, whatever, that's the level the pig should be moving upwards, right? Very, very, very slow. Incline. So what we'll do from an above ground perspective, or from a bird's eye view, is we'll back our trailer up. All right, here's our trailer. Again, I'm good at Pictionary, by the way. I'm just kidding. I'm not. And we will set up a chute. Sometimes it's got curves. Again, Temple's idea of curves. And we'll come over here to our pen, maybe a bigger pen here, something like that. So the pigs are all in this area. And as the pigs start here, they're starting at ground level. Move over this way. They're starting at ground level, and they're going to be slowly increasing up to the trailer height over a space of 10 to 15 feet. Again, because we're all in, how high is the back of a gooseneck trailer? 18 inches, 12 inches usually, right? Not real high. So we need to go from ground level, 0, grade, up to the trailer height in about we've done it as short as like 7 or 8 feet, but 10 or 12 feet's better if you can. So we'll just say 10 or 12 feet. It's not a real far turn, but we're going to have them come up to that level. It's dirt, just like the dirt that's the pen. It's the same thing. Fill it with dirt, and they're going to work their way across, and then all they have to do is cross the threshold, which is, if you do it well, it's just very small, and they step into it, and we're good. Andrew, I'm done at 10, right? Okay, cool. If I get too long, and that's important. So how is that dirt? Well, so what we've done is we build a wooden fences, and then we just fill it with dirt. Like we just bring dirt from somewhere else. Yeah, where's the dirt come from? We bring dirt from somewhere else. And in this distance, in this space, this is as wide as a pig. So we're talking this wide, and it funnels up. And so all it takes, literally 2 front end loader fulls of bucket, or 3 or 4 wheelbarrow fulls of bucket of dirt gets you from 0 to that height in that amount of space, right? Not a lot of dirt. So we can build this in other places very quickly to load hogs anywhere on a trailer at any point. And this gets us past hope so. And then this little bit of tight area is built out of either a hog panel that's on posts, wooden posts, or it's built with wooden boards, heavy duty. Again, so right here in this area, we are building something solid, not with baling twine and prayer, but something that we know is going to hold the pigs as they go into this area, okay? So as the pigs are going up that ramp, Curved is typically, it doesn't have to be curved, but curving typically hides the turn. Again, Temple is big on curves, and I could not agree more, is that it hides, it keeps the animal comfortable as they're turning in a direction to something unfamiliar. So instead of a long straightaway, like you see the light at the end of the tunnel, move away from the light. If it's curved, they're kind of coming, they're like curious. They're like, what's going on around the curve? They're just kind of coming along, and then all of a sudden, we're in a trailer. Well, we'll just go on anyway, okay? So the curving, again, is one of the biggest advancements that I'm not harping on Temple. It's just that she was incredibly gifted in this and brought it to the industry. That's what changed in animal husbandry and loading and movement, was that ability to create some curves. So if you can do the curve, it's better. Now for 10 or 12 feet with pigs, it's not the end of the world, but if you can curve it, it's better. So as you're working up this chute now, buy your spouse, the person who just got the pigs, or the child, or whoever got the pigs, buy this for them for Christmas. It's not that expensive. It's super great. You're like, I can make that at home. Don't make it at home. It's super light. Buy it. It's so nice. Please. It's great. It's got all the holes in it. It's super nice. And you can use this to move the pigs so effective. So please get these. They're worth their money. And so as you're following the pigs up this chute, you're using this. I'm keeping it on the ground on purpose, because if a pig gets under something, back to that leverage idea, remember? You're not holding them down. A 300-pound pig has the leverage of like a 1,000-pound person. You're not gonna hold them. So you always keep the pig board on the ground. Keep it tipped forward, because if they put their nose under it this way, you're going to end up in that levitation situation again. Okay? Keep it forward. And like you say, like, Daniel, what are you going to talk about for an hour about loading hogs? These little tips. It's the difference between getting upended, ending up in the toilet and go, that was a drag, or it working, right? Just the angle of the pig board changes success and failure, all right? And again, this is stuff that I've learned years and years and years of loading pigs. Every pig load did not go well until I learned some of this stuff. So keep it forward, and you're just working it up this ramp, up this chute, and then they're right on the trailer. Okay. Critical steps that make pig loading super easy. Again, even if you have to set up some gates with a couple of T-posts, right? Gates with a couple of T-posts to create this loading situation. If you can't do a curve, okay, that's fine. Make it straight. Go get 2 wheelbarrowfuls of dirt. Put it in there to create your ramp. Back your trailer up beforehand. Have it all set up. And then all you need to do is bring your pigs up in that area and get them. If you want to do the baiting situation where you're feeding them up in the trailer a day or two in advance, that's fine. Set this up too. And it'll happen like that, and they'll go in no problem. Okay? Yeah, don't be using wires, electric fence. We're going to talk about a Bluff line here in a minute, or a polywire tape to herd pigs. Do not be doing that with pigs. They're very complicated that way. Another little pig moving hack is if you're moving pigs from paddock to paddock. Again, remember, they're partially blind. They don't see really well. They rely on their nose incredibly a lot. So if you have an electric fence up and then you take it down, most times they can't tell it's gone visually, right? And so what we use is actually wooden gates. We put in little 8-foot wooden gates. We just build little short wooden panels. It looks like board fence, right? It's got spaces in between. Pretty light. You can pick them up, carry them, no big deal. And we just put in 2 posts side by side. T-posts are fine. Wooden posts are great, whatever. And that's just chained together. And then when you need to move the pigs, you just take that gate away, and the pigs are like, oh, that's clearly, visibly gone. There was never electric fence there. There was never something that shocked them that kept them out of there. And it's a huge visual, okay, this is now not there, and they will move so much easier between paddock to paddock than just taking down the wire. I don't care if you're using polywire, if you're using the Premier stuff, the netting, whatever you're using. Going away from electric gates was one of the biggest game changers we ever did when it came to moving hogs. And that was a big deal, going to the wooden, you can use metal, but metal around electric usually doesn't match very well. So we try to use wood around electricity if possible, and that way if it does short or touch, it's not going to create a big ground, and you don't get shocked. So those are some things that we've done with the wooden, and that helps a lot. those are some pig moving stuff. Other pig moving questions. All right, we didn't work you that hard. Go ahead.
One at a time, or just 5 at a time?
When you're going to load them, pigs do like to stay together. So I try to say my little adage of moving pigs is all or nothing. So if one breaks by you, stop, go back, get that one, and bring them all at the same time. So make sure you have your situation where you can have all or nothing. Now, that doesn't mean if one is being a pig, sometimes out of a group, there's always one in every group, right? You teachers know there's always one in every class. There's one that can be a jerk. Now, if that one's being a jerk, sometimes it's best to take everybody else up on the trailer, hold those on the trailer, and go get the jerk. And you can focus on the jerk. But as a general rule, it's all or nothing. Keep everybody moving together. Yeah, good question. Any other pig moving questions? There's more to talk about there, but there's a couple of key hacks. Yes, sorry. Okay, getting them off a trailer. Okay, you were at the processor, getting them off the processor. Okay, there again, that's an interesting statement. How do you get them off at the processor? There is a lot of bad unloading processing situations out there. I wish I had some wonderful tips for you there. I wish some processors did a lot better. Some do way better than others. A couple of things that would help. Did you have any boards to bring them off? You did. Okay, and they were still hard to get off. Yeah, very difficult. Okay. The other suggestion I have there is typically a bale of hay. That helps a lot. If you throw a bale of hay in the back of the truck, if you know it's going to be bad at the processor, and stick that underneath the, don't break it, just put it underneath. It creates something that's a little more familiar, a little more natural as they go to step off that trailer. Typically it fits underneath, and so it creates a little bit of a stair step. And they'll step off a little better. That's one of the things that we used to do to load pigs, but they just hate stepping up, so we quit doing it. But if you get them to unload, that would be my recommendation, is just take, especially if your processor isn't helping you out, helping you out by a better setup. Not by physically helping you. That would be where I would go with that, is to take a bale of hay with you, stick it under the back, and have that work. The other idea, it's a little bit crazy, but the other thing would be to take a block with you, block of wood or something, and put it under so that you could actually disconnect the trailer and jack it up a lot. So that your jack, and that changes the distance by quite a bit in the back. So put your jack all the way down, your extension all the way down, put your block down, put your jack extension all the way down, and then crank that thing, disconnect from your truck. Like, what the heck? I know it's a pain, but it's either that or muscle a 300-pound pig around for an hour and get worked into a lather. So if you can stand it up a lot, that's a big deal. The other option is even just closing the distance, like asking the processor if they've got a pile of bedding, sawdust, old bedding, new bedding, whatever, and taking a shovel quick and just putting a few shovelfuls just to close that distance. To make it not such a big step. We also find that pigs do better at all of this when they're out on bigger areas. And I'm not saying give them bigger expanses, but like if they're in forest settings or something where they're jumping over deadfalls, going up and down hills, they're just a little more toned up. Yours were probably outside. They probably were toned anyway. But we do find that they go up and down stuff a little better when they're out, like jumping over deadfalls, dead trees, stumps, going around things, that they do offload and load a little bit better. So again, routine, a little bit of habit, things like that. So yeah, sorry that happened to you. That's a real drag. And there are a lot of bad processing facilities out there that have some really, really stupid unloading situations. I've been there. It sucks. Cool. Thank you. Good. I don't want to just talk all day. I want to answer your questions. Yes, in the back. Go ahead. Okay, tips for catching piglets. Yes, I do not farrow, so I'm going off a second hand on some of this, but I am fairly familiar with it. On catching piglets, most of the time there is a catch pin setup, meaning you would set up a pin very much like this, that's piglet proof, and it can be as simple as literally 4 hog panels. It doesn't have to be fancy. And then you begin feeding the sow in there, and the piglets follow the sow very well. Then, if you have a tractor, you can build kind of my pig loader idea on the 3-point hitch of your tractor. For example, if you don't have a tractor, this is not applicable, but it's a cheap way to do it. My brother-in-law builds like a box, so it's about the size of 2 pallets, I guess, on the back of a tractor. And so as you raise that 3-point, you're familiar with the 3-point where it goes up and down, then you can drop that right on the ground, and you can load those piglets onto it. They're not very big, so you can fit a lot in a small space, right? And get those piglets on that, pick them up, and move it. It's a lot cheaper and easier than a pig mover, and you're not moving that very many. So it's something you could probably build at home if you have a tractor that raises and lowers. Even a small tractor will do it, that would get it going in the right direction. Other than that, I would say as long as you're getting them in a pen that's contained, I'm big on sweeps, right? Sweep gates. So if you can get them in a pen that's contained, get another gate that you can sweep them together that's got hog panel on it. I'm not big on hog panel to work pigs with because, again, it's floppy, it's flimsy, they can root up under it, they can stick their nose through, pick you up, right? So I prefer more like a structured, even if you take a hog panel and bolt like boards to the perimeter so it's solid, then that gives you something you can work with for loading piglets. Yeah, great question. One other question, then we'll go to another topic. Okay. So I covered moving pigs pretty good. There's a lot more to it, but that's a good start. We talked about chicken shelters, both in the meat birds and the layers. I want to talk a little bit about the cattle moving. I want to move to that a little bit. So if you're training them to electric fence, which I'm sure you all are, of course, you're going to use electric fence, and that's really important. They're going to be trained to this, and this is going to be really your best friend. And so what I use here is what's called a bluff, and that's exactly what it means. It's not electric. You're bluffing them, and you're faking them out to think that this is going to keep them from doing something. So what I do here, let's just say, let's say you've had an oops, right? Because you're going to have animals. You're going to have an oops. So you've got your cows. They're now not where they belong. However they are, wherever they are, we're not going to go into that, whether it's you forgot to turn the spark on, whether a neighbor's dog scared them and they ran off, whether whatever, okay? They're just somewhere else, and they need to be somewhere different. And this can even be in a successful situation where you need to bring a few animals from where they are to the corral or something. For me, it happens a lot when I've got maybe a cow calving that's, for example, having a little trouble, and I need to get her from the herd to the barn. And I'd rather not bring the whole herd in the barn. Then I use the bluff. With enough bluff lines, with enough bluff lines, all things are possible. With the right setup, you can get to a lot of things. So what I've done with one person, I've moved a herd of 100 cows from one end of the farm to the other with enough setup. Now, it took me a couple hours for setup and takedown, but I did it myself. With these, again, you don't have to electrify it. If they're well trained to it, they're going to be, coming apart here. If they're well trained to it, they are going to respect it for a short period of time. I am not saying cheat and leave your spark off. I am saying use this in a moving setting to use it as a bluff to fake them out, okay? And so one of the things that I like to do is literally like a flying V, right? So I can just take this. All right, audience participation. You're going to hold that. Thanks to Premier Fencing for the props here. They didn't pay me to say that. I'm just saying it. And you're going to be the other end. Of course, when I'm passing this out, I say, you've got the smart end and you got the dumb end. Sorry. And I'm the V, right? So the cow is in between us. So these two gentlemen are out in front of the cow. And the cow is my side of them. So now if she decides to go or run, you two are out in front of her, all right, and can keep her contained. And I am controlling her by moving in this manner. We're still using the low-stress handling techniques of pressure points, of movement, of sight lines, and all that. And again, I'm not here to discuss that. There's a whole nother book and a whole nother thing. But I'm able to use this to move the animals along, and it's a flying V. And we just are slowly moving across the pasture, moving the animals from point A to point B. So I've literally had, 200 cows on somebody else's property one time. Again, tree falls on the fence in the middle of a storm like last night. I'm not there. It happens. It's going to happen sometimes. You got to move animals from point A to point B. We can get 3 or 4 people out there, or 2 people even, and create this flying V, and you're moving animals back to where they belong, and they stay and they respect this. You can even do more of an angle. So I can, if I've got a fence that's running this direction, I can then change it. We're going to give me the handle here for a second. If I've got a fence that's running up this alleyway, I'm going to have somebody hold it back here, and we're going to create, we're going to do it this way. You're going to be point A, I'm going to be point B, and we're just going to stay this way. The cows, we're creating the flying V, but we have a permanent fence here. You with me? And we're able to move the animals in that direction. Incredibly effective, incredibly effective. No running, no panicking, no stressing out. And the animals just move. And they're comfortable in this because they feel contained, right? They feel comfortable. They're not just out in the prairie being chased. They're being very consistent. They're comfortable with this. They know this is a barrier. They know this is something that keeps them contained. And so as we move steadily across the pasture, they stay in with this. Would you mind rolling that up for me? There you go. I'll put some tension on it for you. And so as a smart person, the smart end, he's responsible for keeping tension in the line as we get closer and closer to the barn and rolling the slack out of it. Thank you, sir, very much. To keep us taut and keep us moving in the right direction. So that bluff line, that flying V bluff line or the triangle bluff line has allowed me to move animals all sorts of places, control animals, bring them back, move them around, whatever. But again, this is not to let you cheat and move animals in that direction. Questions on that real quick. I'm going to go to chickens. You might have to yell. Okay. Yes, go ahead. Do I use the flying V bluff for pigs? No, I do not. I highly, highly, highly recommend not to ever do that. It just doesn't usually end well. It can. I've seen people who do it, so I'm not saying it can't, but it's usually not the way to bet. Permanent, a physical barrier for pigs is pretty important when you're come loading. All right, so how to pick up chicks. Get a bunch of crates. Have these. These are your friend. Get plenty of them. Spend the money on. Don't try to build something homemade. Don't try to catch in boxes or dog crates or whatever. These are incredibly nice. They're expensive to buy. I get that. Look for used ones if at all possible, but please buy chicken crates if at all possible. They stack well. They lock together well. They have, foot protections. All the things work to get these animals to pasture. So again, for me, when I do this, come here, girl. Oh, easy, easy. Hold on. I'm going to put this down so I can handle her. Easy. So this would be, so just to demonstrate, easy. I'm used to meat chickens. So this is the body catch, right? So the body catch is where you're grabbing the bird. This is your body catch. This is great. It works really well. It keeps your wings together. It keeps their feet from getting on you. If you're having to carry the bird or hold the bird, you just put your hand below them. I have both their feet tucked between my hands, and I'm holding the chicken. I also have both of her wings tucked. I have one wing tucked under my pinky, one wing tucked under my thumb, and she's contained this way, okay? And then I can also just kind of stick her there, put her in the crook there, put her in the dark, and she's going to settle down right away, okay? So there's nothing wrong with a body catch, but you got to catch 1,000 chicks. You don't have time for 1,000 body catches, okay? Sorry, girl. I'm not going to do it with her necessarily because she's a little bit older and she's not mine. But if you're catching 3-week-old Cornish cross chickens or Red Rangers or whatever meat birds, there is nothing wrong with leg catching. We do lots and lots of leg catching. We have no injuries. It's not a problem. It's not that we never have an injury, but we have very, very, very low injury. It works great. You're going to catch, we tell our team you're going to catch 10 chicks at a time, right? So you're going to put 10 chickens in your fingers like this, above, not down here, but above this joint where the feathers are, okay? That's the key. So you're, up here, this joint is very strong. This joint is weaker. So you're going to catch above the feather line and hold it in your fingers there, okay? And so now I have 2 birds worth, right? I'm using the same bird, but I have 2 birds worth essentially in that. And they are actually more docile to catch 6 birds this way than 1. If you catch 1 and pick it up, if I let go, she's going to flap really bad. But if I have a group of 6 They don't. And so when I'm catching chicks, I'm down here like this. I'm catching one and putting in my finger, and I'm keeping their breast on the ground. I'm not holding them up like this. I'm keeping their chest and body on the ground, right? I'm not hurting her at all. And I'm just gonna continue to catch chicks, right? I'm just gonna bring them in, 1, 2, 3. And I'm just gonna put them in my fingers like this. I'm gonna get 6 or 7 in this hand, and then I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3 in this hand. And I've had my setup properly already, so I've got my crate right here. So I'm catching, and as soon as I'm done catching, I grab those 10, whoop, straight in the back in the crate, done. Because they pick up as a group, you don't have to worry about all the birds flapping because they're grouped together. Remember, I talked about grouping already. And so when you have that ability to just take those chickens and just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, boom, in the crate, right? And that's how you pick up chicks. I know. It's the last day. I'm sorry, it's early. Okay, last questions on chicks or last questions on anything, and I'm going to wrap up. We're right on time. Yes, in the back. Sorry, go ahead.
You were saying you were using the term chicks. Now, are these chickens ready for butcher, or are these young?
Sure. What am I using when I say chicks? So for me, meat birds, chicks are either like 2.5 to 3 weeks old coming out of the brooder, going to the shelters, or they also can be 6 or 7, 8-week-old birds going to processing. At that case, I'm not picking up 10. I'm picking up like 3 or 4 in this hand, 2 or 3 in this hand, putting them in, and then grabbing a couple extras. But still, group catch, on the ground, catching. So again, you got to get in the catcher squat, like, baseball, but you're catching birds, and you're 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're just boom, right in the crate, back down, catch, and you're going again. Okay, and I saw one more hand. Go ahead. Can I, sorry, is there more to the question? I'm sorry. Yeah, so how am I using the flying V and when? I'm using that anytime I either need to get one animal together, so if I need to bring it into a working system, that's fine. Like I say, a cow having calving trouble, something that maybe needs a little bit of attention, whatever. Or I'm using it to bring in a group of cows that are in large expanse. So if you've got, in an OOP situation, they're big and they're spread out, you can get them corralled and kind of moving in a more general direction and a more slowly confined direction with a big flying V. Sure, how often do we work our cows through the working system? Again, it's either every time we're moving them through, maybe once a month. For us, we're actually pulling cattle for processing every 2 weeks. So we're actually working one of our herds every 2 weeks. Yeah. So do it when you can. Hey, thank you for your attention. May all your pigs walk on the trailer beautifully without complaining. And thank you for your attention and your time. Have a great rest of your day.